Welcome to Kingdomize, the podcast, where we discuss how to see our lives and our world through a kingdom lens, how to infuse kingdom culture into our families, our workplaces, and our cities, as we all participate in the dream of Jesus to see his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. So welcome back to Kingdomize Global, the podcast, and we are doing Solutionaries. We are talking about people all over the globe that are really doing things the kingdom way and bringing real answers to real problems to show that the kingdom is meant for today, answering Jesus' question to pray that his kingdom comes on earth as it is in heaven, and then doing it. And so this is going to be fantastic. I've been looking for this day for a while because Ian's been telling me about the Gaetas. You've got to meet the Gaetas. You've got to go to Austria. You got to go see what they're doing. They're changing the entire world from Austria, from Vienna. How does this happen? And so this is going to be amazing. So it's great to be here with Ian Green, with Angela and Gianni Gaeta. And their story is amazing. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But let me tell you a little bit about them. They are church planters. They run the Life Church Movement Leadership Academy from Australia for 39 years. Their goal, just a small one, is to change all of Europe. Just that. They want to change all of Europe by planting churches that become transformation centers, not just having places that are gathered, but to equip every one of their people to go into the spheres of society that they're called to as a calling. That's amazing. And that so fits with Kingdomize Global. That's why they're here today. Ian, that's why we're here today, right? So why don't you share? But Ian, you and the Gaetas have been friends for a long time. Talk about who they are.
All right. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Good to be back. Look, Gianni and Angela, you're going to love this story. I've probably known them for probably at least 30 plus years and have been visiting them and trying to support them in what they've been doing in Austria probably for 25 plus years for sure. And they are just amazing people. They are courageous. They are faith-filled, they are innovative. And I know when you hear their story, something is going to come off them onto you as you listen to it because they impart faith and revelation. And so I am so pleased to have my friends Angela and Gianni today. I'm glad you're here, and I know that people who are going to listen to this, they're going to be glad that they listen to it too.
So Angela and Gianni, we just want to hear your story, want to hear what you do and why. You can start as far back as you want. Like, don't go back to Adam and Eve. That's too far back. But as far back in your story as you want to go, and then we're going to come up to today and talk about what you're doing. Let's hear your story.
Okay, well, I am Gianni, and this is my wife, Angela. And as you can maybe notice by the name, I am not British or American. I am actually Italian. I come from the south of Italy, grew up in a Christian family. And my wife, Angela, comes from the south of England, from Cornwall. And so we met when we were in a Bible college in England, just south of London. And as it happened, I fell in love with Angela as we were studying together. So basically, I was planning to go back to my own nation and to work in TV and radio stations and be a missionary in that world. And then when I shared, my feelings for Angela, the course of my life really changed. So Angela had very early in her life, when she was 17, I believe, a call to come to Austria because she had been here with a team of young people for a week doing outreach, a team from England. And then she realized that Austria was a nation that was very spiritually, very, very poor. She didn't meet hardly any young person who was a believer. Churches, even the Catholic churches, were really empty, and not many Christians in the whole nation. And so when she was 17, she received God's call for Austria. Maybe, Angela, you want to add something more to that?
Yes, so good to be with you. And I love stories. And I didn't expect to look back now on decades of ministry, of serving Jesus, following Jesus, and have such a story to tell, because my background is very rural. I grew up in a very idyllic little part of Great Britain. All of my family today are still farmers. And so my background was one of practical work, and I loved it. But I love following Jesus too, and have done since I was just 10 years old. And I think my simplicity then and the fact that I was very, very shy because I'm really quite introvert meant that at a young age, when I prayed, because Grandad taught me to pray, my prayers were very, very short with words, but they were long with listening. And so after this little mission trip at 17, and I was back on the farm and doing what Grandad had taught me, kneeling beside my bed in the evening, saying my prayers. And I asked God to take a look at Austria because I just couldn't understand how such a beautiful nation, it seemed to have everything, and yet the young people there didn't have the opportunity to find Jesus like I had at a young age. So I asked God to take a look. And as I listened, I sensed that he asked me to take another look. And every evening he built on that. And I asked him, I sensed him asking me to consider more. So I said, well, I would pray for the missionaries. And then I said, well, I'll give financially to the missionaries. But I couldn't give any more because my plans for the future were all set to fulfill a childhood dream to become a Cornish farmer's wife. And I was just about to get engaged, to be married, to do that at 18. But
you're quite a wealthy person also.
I wasn't going there, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
But I sensed a call one evening, and it was very clear, Angela, I want you to give your life for Austria. And I didn't give an immediate yes, but when I did, after a few evenings, in my absolute simplicity of faith, I sensed God offering me the nation. And in my naivety, I said, okay, I'll have the nation. Thank you.
Exactly.
I had no idea what that was going to involve. I did realize it was going to change the course of my life, and I was going to be learning German, leaving my family. I was going to be moving to the nation, I thought, as a single woman. But here we are 44 years on, and just have had this incredible privilege of living here with Gianni. This is the only place we've ever lived as a couple. This is home. We're not missionaries that one day are going home. This is home. I love this nation passionately. We've done everything to become everything to reach the Austrians. So a little nation, just 9 million people living here. When we came here 39 and a half years ago.
Maybe we should make the connection, because really back to the Bible school, when I said to Angela, maybe we should spend our life together, she said to me, if you want to marry me, there is Angela and Austria, or there is no Angela. And so, I mean, it's an important part, because she was so focused on what, the call of God on her life. And I'm just saying that because sometimes people just throw everything overboard after a strong call, then they change their destiny according to maybe they met somebody who, and a relationship. But with Angela, it was not the case. And she really said, no, I am going to Austria. And to cut a long story short, really that became my call also. When people ask me, how did God, as an Italian, take you to Austria, learn German, leave the seaside and all these beautiful things of the world in Italy? And I always say, it came through my wife. And that's why then we really both agreed to then move to Austria, and then you can carry on. Well, it's an important part.
Yeah, that's amazing. Angela, you call yourself an unlikely missionary, so that sounds like Gianni as well. And this won't be for this podcast, but I want to do a podcast with you about what it's like, Gianni, to be married to 9,000,001 people. So that's another podcast. But no, let's keep going. This is amazing. I love these backstories. Really good.
Yes, so we moved here when we were just 22, straight out of Bible school. It just married, and thought we were going to come here to serve another missionary family. I thought I would care for their children, to release them. Gianni's a great musician. He was going to serve his guitar in the little tiny church plant that they were attempting to start. We spent the first 3 years here serving others while we learned German. But in those first 3 years, although we were serving alongside people who could speak the language, who knew the culture, we didn't see one Austrian come to faith in Jesus, not one. And it was like, this is like just a different world. But it was then that we sensed again God asking us just to move into a town, choose any town in the nation, move there, live there, reach out to people and start winning people for Jesus and begin a community, a spiritual community, a church, which we did in our 8th floor apartment block 36 years ago, and literally started the first church there when our daughter, our first child, was born.
Guys, you have to tell a story about your first convert. It's just amazing.
Well, what happened was Angela was in the hospital because she just given birth to our first child. But before she went to the hospital, she was thinking of going back to England to give birth to our daughter, because that's what many missionaries do. They go back home. And especially because, we didn't know hardly anyone. We couldn't speak the language very well. And Angela was thinking, I will be in the hospital on my own. I will understand the people. I miss my family. And then we were thinking of doing that. Angela, as she was praying, God promised her, if you stay in Austria, in this place, in this town, and you give birth to your child, I will also give you spiritual birth. And so Angela told me that. And then so we decided Esther was going to be born in Austria, in the town where we were staying. While after Esther was born, the day after, I was helping somebody else in another city to church plant. And I was doing worship. And then after the church meeting, this lady came to me and she said, oh, she comes from Leoben, the town where we were living. She's a believer. And she's heard that we are there to plant a church. She was so delighted. Her mom and dad lived there. And so we were going to meet her parents. But she came to visit us one day. And as we were talking, she started talking about her life. And we mentioned water baptism for some reason. I don't know how it happened. But anyhow, we were talking about water baptism. And then she said to us, what is that? And we said, well, we were surprised she didn't know anything about being baptized as an adult. And anyhow, we just, she went home that evening, and the next day she rang us and she said, I want to be baptized. So it was winter. So we said to her, well, maybe we wait until the summer comes and we baptize you in a lake, in one of Austria's beautiful lakes. And she said, no. I am so convicted about it. You need to baptize me now. And we said, oh, how are we going to do that? And she said, well, I saw you have a bathtub, don't you? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I'm a small person, a short person. I'll fit in any bathtubs. And so basically that evening she came to our house and we baptized this lady in our bathtub. There was Angela, myself, and a little girl. And that was the first of many, many baptisms that we had in this nation. It was quite amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the story of our life and ministry, is that God has just kept his promises.
Yeah.
If we've just found a childlike simple faith to believe what he said, he has absolutely kept his promises. And so now, so Esther Grace is 36 years old, and we look back now to all these years of having the incredible honor of helping and leading many, many, mostly young people to a real living faith in Jesus, and then just doing life with them, discipling them, walking with them, and then training them in an understanding of God and his kingdom. And because they've come from different cities across the nation, and many of those had no church in them where they could go to, we've needed to plant churches, start spiritual communities. We have 15 established little churches now across the nation, Life Church. We have 4 startups. That's our beginning form. That is just where we look for a family or a couple of individuals in a town, in an area, and ask them to open their heart, their home, and their fridge and start inviting people to get to know them, to create community, and as they create community, walk with them on a journey to get to know Jesus and then to follow Jesus together.
Yeah, that's right. When we came to Austria, we had no idea we were church planters. We didn't see ourselves as leaders, never mind apostolic or prophetic or any of that stuff. What happened, we discovered our call as the time went on, as we realized, there is no churches. So we said, let's church plant. And then we realized churches is not enough. We have to impact society. So let's train leaders. Let's train leaders not only in church, but also in life, in politics, in business. And we discovered it as we went, as we saw the need. We thought, and we have to do that. And so obviously when you church plant, you have to develop leaders. That's why we started the Leadership Academy. And when people say, oh, how did you find your call? I always say we discovered our call as we went. Sometimes we can be waiting until God tells us exactly what we call to, instead of just making a step and discover who we are and what God has called us to as we go.
So, guys, I think maybe most people may not realize, listen to this podcast, that Austria is largely a Catholic country. And I know for many years when I was coming back and forth, anything that was non-Catholic was almost labeled as a cult. And that really didn't help your purpose and goals.
It was very difficult.
So, but somehow the Lord led you to make a mammoth change in the governmental law in Austria. How did that happen?
Well, what happened? It is a miracle. It is really a miracle. What happened was the government had pushed us to leave the status of a social organization. We had to find a status that was more good for us as churches, spiritual communities. And as they were doing that, we thought, why don't we go for a recognition, a full status, just like the Catholic Church is, or the Lutheran Church, Orthodox Church? And so we thought, let's push that we get a full recognition from the government. So Life Church, together with the Pentecostal Church, together with a couple of other churches, we joined forces, and we were going to apply to get a full recognition as a religion in Austria. And so did other groups, like the Baptist movement did that, and other groups did. The Mennonites did the same at the same time. And so we were finding a lot of resistance from the government, because basically we didn't have enough members in our churches to do that. There was a law in Austria that said we had to have a percentage of the population to become a recognized religion. And so we didn't have that. But this law that was in Austria was actually a discriminatory law in the eyes of the government of Europe. So European law said the Austrian government is discriminating you. So what we all did, each group for it on its own, we hired lawyers, and we were going to take the Austrian government to court, in the European court. The government heard that, called us all together to talk to us to avoid this. And so I want to cut a long story short, but as we were talking with some of the government representatives, one of them stood up and he said, look, if each of you doesn't have enough members to apply, why don't you all join? Baptists join with Brethren, join with Pentecostal, join with Life Church, with Mennonites. Why don't you all join, create one religion together, and then you will have enough members. Now, obviously, to that, we all laughed, because we were definitely not united in any shape or form. We were not only not united, we were fighting each other. And it was just... I personally thought, you could see this guy is an idiot. In the sense of he does not know what's going on, And anyhow, we disbanded and we went all home, and we were going to proceed in taking the government to court, until one, I think he was the president of the Pentecostal movement, sent us all an email asking us, why don't we meet and consider what the man said? And he was an older man, but obviously an older man with an open mind. And so we met one day all together, all the leading groups of all these movements, Baptist, Brethren, Mennonite, Pentecostals, Life Church, in a place in the mountain. And I can only say this, when we arrived, I really felt God is here. There was such a presence of God. I didn't go there expecting this, but there was something in the air. And as we sat down together, we never spoke about whether this is possible. We spoke from the very beginning, how are we going to make this happen? So anyhow, in 2013, we received the full recognition of the Austrian government with no veto from any of the existing religion, because anyone, Orthodox, Catholic, Lutheran, could have said, I don't agree, and that would have not happened. No veto from any of them. And we were fully recognized as the free churches of Austria, on par with Catholic, Lutheran, Mennonite, Orthodox Church. And it was really an earthquake, a positive earthquake. That meant the school, we also planned schools and not just churches, the schools, which were private schools, that we had to pay everything for. The parents had to pay a lot of money to send their kids to our schools. The government covered almost all the costs of our teachers, of rent, of buildings. We were asked to teach religious education of the Free Churches of Austria in every public school in Austria, and the government pays our teacher. All of a sudden, we were totally involved in the fabric of the nation, no more looked upon as a sect, actually as part of a church that is involved with other churches to reach out to Austria. And we are in the middle of it now. So we are not anymore a subculture. We are totally in it. People feared that we were going to have loads of restrictions as we were recognized, but it's the very opposite. We have more freedom than ever before. And so that was 2013. It was an absolute miracle. A miracle also that all these movements became one religion. So we are not just a little loose connection. The government required of us to have regulations and constitution, the basis of faith together. We couldn't have each one his own. We had to have one. And I mean, we had many, many hours and days of discussion, but at the end of the day, we made it, and it's an amazing thing.
I mean, that was, for me, that was a monumental shift, right? But what is, because of your vision for bringing the kingdom into society, it's created, within the network, people who are engaging with the government and with social issues of the day, maybe just tell us one or two things that's happening in that area, because you planted the vision. You no longer a pastor trying to grow a church, but you're actually people trying to grow people who would change a nation. That got into the people that you were leading. And so the outcome of that has been people have taken the initiative, right? And they've gone forward. So it would be great to hear some of that.
Maybe I should start with, we realized looking back, and we understand a lot of what God is doing with us looking back. The input we had in our lives is something that was absolutely pivotal for Angela and myself. It was the fathers and the mothers that impacted our lives. And God brought on our side men and women who thought about kingdom. I mean, even you as a person, Ian, you have impacted our life very much. And especially in the last maybe 10 years or so, and you also were totally talking about the kingdom of God as opposed just to a church that enjoys gathering and what I call to be a subculture or a parallel culture. But so these people really impacted us. One person was Alan Vincent, who is now gone with the Lord. And he spoke a lot about the kingdom to us, but it was more the spiritual kingdom, the Davidic kingdom, the kingdom of God, the spiritual kingdom impacting earth. And then we were connected to another man from Switzerland, who was talking about the kingdom of God in society, how to bring the kingdom of God in every sphere of society. And the two things connected together has strongly impacted us. So we became that. We became kingdom thinkers. We act and think kingdom without even thinking about it. And this is why I think it's very, very important to surround ourselves, create a culture in which the kingdom activity flourishes without you having to create a project. It just happens. People come to us with the most incredible ideas. We just recently had a meal to celebrate with a friend of ours, the fact that he has now become a professor of university, and he's a person who is a member of Life Church. He was a founder member of the Life Church in Vienna. And he started many years ago studying. And he became one doctor, a second doctor title, third doctor title, and he was studying until now he has reached the dream that he had to be an influential person in the world of philosophy and ethic in Austria. He doesn't preach Jesus directly, but he has, through his personality and his kingdom understanding, he's having an incredible influence at national level. And so these are and many other things. People have the idea, maybe I should sign in to join one of the political parties to to have impact in the party and in the nation. Another person, she started a life movement, basically not to be against abortion, but to create more possibilities for women who think about aborting, to have more time to think, to be better prepared, because the preparation for a woman who wants to abort in Austria is like nothing. So she has moved so much in the nation, is still moving much in the nation. We started to plant schools because we realized who has the schools has the future. And so why only have people come to faith, which is the most important thing, but how about also preparing kids for the future? Our schools are not there to protect children, but are there to prepare children. And I believe it was John Calvin who started the first Christian school in Geneva. He sent a letter to the parents and he said, "Send me wood and I will send you back arrows." This is, but this is what he intended to do. And that's what we also intend to do. But we were also impacted by other people who at the right time brought messages and inputs that totally took hold of us. So now when plant schools or plant churches or develop leaders or people join politics or the media or the entertainment of Austria, we do it almost without thinking, because we have become that, and not, it's not just project.
I see that because we've had this amazing opportunity to serve in real virgin territory. So it's like we're leading churches that are full of men and women, younger men and women who have no other spiritual heritage.
Yeah.
And so we led them to faith. And because we lead relationally, we've walked with them and we've been able to form them. They're not having to unlearn things before they learn kingdom theology or a worldview. It's the milk that they get fed from the very beginning. So it isn't like other maybe denominations or groups where the big ship at some stage has to be turned. We've been building little boats and setting them on a course. And that course we've had the honor of determining with influence from God through people who have shaped us and shaped our thinking. Because we're continually winning people to Jesus, they are born into an environment. This is really all they know. So they follow Jesus for a few weeks or a few months, and they come up with ideas of like, if we're going to reach that little town and have a startup, open our home, our heart, and our fridge, maybe we should take over a cafe on town square and meet people there and establish kingdom there. This is what an older couple who had taken retirement have done just a few kilometers away from. So we're in the suburbs of Vienna and they're just in another beautiful town on the Danube. And this is what they've done to start a church, to begin influence.
And the story is very exciting, if I can interrupt. Yeah, as Angela said, they retired and they thought, what shall we do? Let's begin a startup. And so they bought this cafe in the center of town, and everybody's talking about them, because how comes that a couple that is retired wants to open a cafe? And then they had an idea. They wanted to give something back to the Lord for the blessing in their lives. So they decided that every 10th of the month, they will give all the profit, everything, all the profit of that day to two things: to a social project in the town, and half of it to Life Church. So they went to the mayor of the town and said, are there any projects that we can support? He was shocked. He said, what, you want to give us money? And they said, yes, every 10th of the month, everything that comes in goes to a social project. So they found a number of projects. They're also asking people in the town. Everybody says which projects should be supported. They're now on social media. And the 10th of every month, this cafe place is packed with people who know when we eat there and drink there, everything that comes in is going to go for a social project in our town. and everyone is talking about it. They already won the heart of everyone.
Totally awesome. No,
Yeah, totally
totally
awesome.
awesome.
But they did it. It was not me having the idea. I didn't say, "Oh, buy a cafe or start a." They did it. It's the genes that they have. Is the DNA? Yeah, it's the DNA that they have. It's causing people to do that. And we could tell many other stories.
No, that's great. That's great, guys. I mean, I love that. I mean, there are many other stories. I've been back and forth many years, and so there are many other stories. I'd probably, I mean, it feels chatting to you now as if moving from, you know, the language we would use is church-centric to kingdom-centric was a journey for you. It wasn't like dramatic. You woke up one day and it was this, and the next day was that. It was, you've kind of got into the slipstream, you know, the input of Alan Vincent, Walter Durr, these people, but then something clicked for you. Like, can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't that something clicked in a sense of we all of a sudden. What happened? It made sense. What made sense for me, the understanding of the power of the spiritual kingdom. You know, even have the power we have in the unseen world. Maybe I can tell you a story. In year 2000, I think it was year 2000, what we did, we asked about 500 people to drive to the tallest mountain in Austria, which is the Großglockner. It's a very high mountain. I forget how many feet is the highest mountain, the tallest mountain in this nation. And so many people drove to as far as a car can drive. And we built a platform and we had worship and prophetic proclamation almost the whole day. But we sent also climbers to the very top. Only climbers can get to the top. We sent 4 climbing groups there, and they had an apostolic prophetic declaration, which they spoke from the top, and we declared many things over Austria. But one of them was that the gates of politics will open up, the gates of education will open up, the gates of so we were declaring and prophesying there. And so it was an incredible day. It was very powerful. But as we were driving down, my wife and I, with our car, it was a windy road all the way down. The Lord asked me this. He said to me, "What now?" So God said, when I opened the gates, the gates of politics, who is there ready to enter? When I opened the gates of the entertainment industry, who is there ready to enter? And he went on, all the things we said, gates, open up. We were declaring, shouting to the top, from the top of this mountain. And it dawned on me, there was nobody ready. And it was a little bit of a crisis for me, because we did kingdom in the spirit, we declared in the spirit, but we never prepared people to be lawyers, politicians, teachers, educators, musicians, and we never did that. And so from that moment on, there was a shift in our movement. We started to lay a lot of importance on preparing people to be there, that when God opens the gates, we will enter it. And this was a key moment for Life Church to become a kingdom-centric, not only spiritual kingdom, but also the kingdom of God impacting earth. Our Father, your kingdom come. Really, it happened after that day. And we did everything on purpose. Now, in the Leadership Academy, we train politicians, business people, as much as pastors. And we don't make one more spiritual than the other. It's for us all spiritual. There is no better, higher calling. It's basically, we say to people, the highest calling is what you were to do.
So that last 2 or 3 minutes there should be made into multiple ways for people to hear that. That is so powerful, Gianni, that who is going to be there? That's exactly why we exist. Like, we're playing the long game on, like, we could have a lovely revival and things could all change for a few months or maybe a year or two. But what we're doing, and what I hear you say you're doing, we're playing the long game to reform all of society. And that makes it different. I heard this on your video as well, on your website. I'll explain that later for people that need to get it. But about, we're planning churches. And most people, when they hear planning churches, they think of, well, here's a nice building. You're doing something different. So I want you to go deeper on what it means to plant a church and how that means we're going to get into the fashion industry and into the, politics and into education, because that is how you will reform Austria and then Europe and beyond. So just go a little deeper on that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I love talking about church planting, because for us, planting a church is all about leading people to Jesus. We can't here just rent a building and open it and with some good advertising draw a couple of hundred Christians from the area, because there aren't Christians in the area to draw. Even if you advertise a church, people will not grasp what it is, even though we're now a recognized religion. So for us, planting a church means we're leading people to Jesus and making disciples. So that often looks like an aunt or a cousin of someone who's come to faith in the last few months starts hearing about their nephew's life with Jesus. But this aunt lives in another city, and the nephew's talking to her and sharing and giving books and saying, watch on Saturday afternoon. We do Saturday church, not Sunday church, because those who don't yet know Jesus come easier on a Saturday than a Sunday.
Yeah.
Kingdom thinking, a little bit out of the box. And so the aunt starts watching the live stream from Vienna. After a while, it might be months or years, but she gives her life to Jesus and then wants to attend a church, but doesn't have one in her city. She can attend the state church, but she wouldn't possibly find it very edifying. And so she starts asking, what can I do? And so we ask her, would you open your heart, your home, and your fridge and invite a couple of your neighbors or your work colleagues or whoever's around you? We'll help you with the content, and you just start on a journey with these people. It's a community. And then we have a church planting coach he or she will work alongside the startup leader. And that coach will go with this host. And one of the first public things they do is not rent a hall. It's to go and see the mayor. And so we will go with them and go and see the mayor of the town and say, we're here because the well-being of this city really is on our heart. One thing we can tell you, we will be praying for you and the well-being of this town or this city from now on. We've started already. We're a little group of 3 people. We meet on a Wednesday evening and we pray for you and your counselors here. And if there's any way we can serve you, we can get in some support from our other Life Church, an hour's drive away. If you need manpower, if we can serve you. But we're here, we're building something. You can see on the website of Life Church, the other churches in the nation. And so this in a home, most times in a home, sometimes we've had situations where a restaurant owner has come to faith and we've started a church in a restaurant just with his staff on the evening that it was their free day. And the
surrounded by
closed.
whiskey bottles, wine bottles. The backdrop of the church was all the bottles and everything. But it was great.
And so we start by creating a context and atmosphere where Austrians or people who've chosen to live in Austria can be loved, be welcomed in, belong, and find Jesus.
Yeah. And something that we always say recently, and I realize that slogans are important. It remains in the minds of the people. We always say church planting is not the end goal, but is the beginning of influence. So once we planted a church, we say this is the beginning. It's not, we have achieved our goal. No, we now start towards our goal.
And so we have a little group of people growing within a home setting or somewhere where those who are not yet part of it would feel welcomed. And then at some stage, when the group has grown, more followers, they're walking in following Jesus together, we'll start with once a month having a public meeting. So hire a hotel room or a public space, and with some support from some of the other Life churches, we'll often do like life stories or God stories. People come in and tell their story, how they've come to faith in Jesus and create an atmosphere where new people can come and listen and receive prayer. We often don't sing in those settings because new people here just wouldn't understand why
While we are singing
would be part of that. But just create a place where new people can come and come to an understanding.
Really good, really good. We're almost near the end of our time today, but Angela, I do want to ask you, like, you're the unlikely missionary, you're the introvert, you're the farmer's daughter, would have done that your whole life. So talk to introverts, because this idea of city transformation, nation transformation, is like the boisterous people usually get the front line. And talk about your story a little bit and what it's like being an introvert, knowing that this is kingdom and what to do about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, yeah. So as you've heard, it started with me, and it started with me because God spoke so clearly, and God still does speak very clearly to me. And I really do my best to just be brutally obedient and do what he tells me to do. Yeah. Now, obviously, I'm married to an extrovert, but we've always led together, and that hasn't always been easy, but it's always been a blessing. And at this stage, in my life, so for many, many years, I was the person who helped to make Gianni's visions and thoughts actually work. So behind the scenes, but that's where I love to be. And I have, particularly in the later years, worked hard at understanding the role of an introvert and how an introvert can lead in what is often very loud, charismatic Pentecostal church context, or in a very busy, quick thinking leadership world that is mostly also male. And I think understanding that I've been made like this and I have been called as a female and it wasn't a mistake that God had made, I lean in strongly then to find there my security. And I have nothing to prove. I would be happy serving in the background and making things happen, but I can see over and over again that God draws me out. And at this maybe slightly later stage in my ministry life, I can see that some incredible gifts that God has given me, I can use that for kingdom transformation. And one of them is my gift of listening and my gift of one-on-one mentorship. And so Gianni and others heading up the bigger training programs, I have a voice into all of that. I have a voice into leadership. But you give me one person to walk with, even if it's just an online mentor call for 90 minutes once a month. I am going to draw the gift of God out of that man or that woman with the theological understanding that our ministry is built on for kingdom transformation. Unlock with my questions and with my believing in that person the gift and the power of God within them to become all that they should be.
Yeah, but maybe I would like to add this. It was actually a painful process. And I remember one day Angela was reading a magazine of a man who wrote an article about introverted leaders. And she said to me, Gianni, this man is talking about me. But it was such a revolution for us because really Angela was trying most of the time to be like me, not to sleep so much like I do, to be empowered by people's around me presence, and to be extrovert. Sometimes I would say to her, why do you hate people? Because she would be with people all the time and she needed a break. We have a big house and I would like to have people every day here and have parties and have people, have food and pray and plan the kingdom. And Angela needed time for herself. And then we realized, no, this is a gift that she is, and I am a gift as I am. And both introverted people and extrovert people need each other and can build the kingdom together. I realized when we were in team meetings, an apostolic meeting, deciding, Angela, usually she was quiet. And then as we drove home from the meeting, she had all these ideas. And I said to her, why didn't you say this in the team meeting? Why are you saying no? And she said, I didn't think then about it. I didn't have the time to think. So, but now I'm thinking, so I tell you. And so I realized I made the mistake of misreading some people in my team. I didn't know that some of the introverted leaders needed time to reflect inside. I reflect loud, a bit like Ian is also. We reflect loud, you know, and I need actually people around me to think with them. But my wife needed to think inside.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had to repent from this attitude and make space for the gold that comes from introverted people. And I realized that some of the big, well-known leaders in the world are actually introverted people that have learned to behave like extroverts, but actually they are introverts.
Many people find it difficult to believe that I'm an introvert because I love preaching and I lead. I lead in larger dimensions now. I have a team. I'm moving things around the world. But it's the calling and gifting of God that enables me. But my personality as an introvert, I have to respect the personality that God has given me and the gift of God within me.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Really, really good. So good. This whole time together, this whole podcast is going to be very helpful for a lot of people in your lives. They're just proving that ordinary people can do whatever God calls them to do. You just hear God,
Absolutely.
you do it. You have, I wrote it down because you said brutally obedient. I loved how we're going to be brutally obedient to what God says, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
So guys, there's lots more that people could dig the gold out of your lives as well and hear what your story. Unpackeurope.info is one of your websites. Is that the best way for people to get a hold of you and hear your story? Is that, yeah?
It's the best way in English. Obviously, our ministry language here in Austria is always German,
right,
or mostly. And so the Impact Europe is our broader ministry spreading now into Europe. And that's where all the English information is.
Yeah, just amazing. Anything you want to say in last thoughts about today's podcast?
There'll be some revolutionary thoughts for people who are listening in today. My encouragement is, guys, don't get intimidated by the journey of Angela and Gianni. Be inspired by it. Ask questions. Contact us at Kingdomize Global. Contact them directly. Look, they are people who love people and they want to see the kingdom go forward. And if you are leaning in to bring the kingdom forward, they will help you to do that. So look, just don't give it a second thought. Jump onto the website now, check it out, and I know they will be a blessing to you, and maybe you could be a blessing to them.
Fantastic. Yes. I agree with Ian. Jump onto the website now, unless you're driving, and then don't do it now. Back soon. Angela, Gianni, thank you so much. What a pleasure to be with you. So wonderful. And thank you for listening today. If you've heard something you liked, you should go do it. Don't just think about it. Just go do it. Find a way to start a church and a coffee shop. Find a way to open your heart, your home, your fridge, all kinds of great things you've heard today. And don't just listen to it. Go do something. And don't just do something yourself. Share this with someone. Let them hear it as well. We can inspire others to action to bring the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. That is what Solutionaries do. They don't just listen. They do. They are brutally obedient to the call of God in their life. And so we want you to follow that as well. Guys, again, thank you. Ian, thanks again. Angela, Gianni, thank you so much. And we will be back next week with another episode of Kingdomize, the podcast.
Thanks for joining us today on Kingdomize, the podcast. Let's keep the discussion going throughout the week on our socials or on our website, kingdomizeglobal.com. Contact us today to see how we can walk together to see more of God's kingdom in your city as it is in heaven.